Semi-truck is outside.
I saw a truck driving a truck.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Are we having a festival we don't know about?
Sorry, I enjoyed the last 3 songs.
Om Ajnanatamarandhyasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuga Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagaratam Sagaranatam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagaranaita Shri Vishakam Sa Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavandu Jagapate Gopesha Goka Kanta Radha Kanta Mostite Tapta Kanchana Gauranga Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubham Sutadevi Pranamami Adhikriye Girajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Nashesha Klesha Nashaya Parmananda Dayane Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mare Kabando Matsangin Madguru Manmadana Madnistaraka Madbhagya Marananda Namostate Asaru Sarutadayan Adinicho Chatakara Anamuncha Karachimam Premna Ritkatayos Puraha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritta Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Nadirai Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, the Amala Purana, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 29, talks between Narada Muni and King Prachinibari, and readings text 42, 43, and 44. Prajapati Pati Shakshad Bhagavan Girisho Manu Dakshadaya Prajadyaksha Naishtika Sanakadaya Marichiratya Angirashau Pulatya Pulakato Vigur Vaishita Ityete Madanta Brahmavandina Adyapi Vachaspatayas Tapo Vidya Samadhivi Pashyanto Pina Pashyanti Pashyantam Parameshwaram Prajapati Pati Shakshad Bhagavan Girisho Manu Dakshadaya Prajadyaksha Naishtika Sanakadaya Marichir Atya Angirasau Pulatsya Pulakatau Katu Brigur Vashishta Ityete Maranta Brahmavandina Adyapi Vachaspatayas Tapo Vidya Samadhibi Pashyanto Pina Pashyanti Pashyantam Parameshwaram. Each can do one shloka. Sorry. Prajapati Pati Shakshad Bhagavan Girisho Manu Dakshadaya Prajadyaksha Naishtika Sanakadaya Marichirata Angirasau Pulatsya Pulakitau Vigur Vashishta Ityete Maranta Brahmavadina Adyapi Vachaspatayas Tapo Vidya Samadhivi Pashyanto Pina Pashyanti Pashyantam Parameshwaram. Word for word. Prajapati Pati, Brahma's father of all, Brahma, the father of all progenitors. Sakshat, directly. Bhagavan, the most powerful. Girisha, Lord Shiva. Manu, Daksha Adaya, headed by King Daksha. Raja Adaksha, the rulers of humankind. Naishtika, the strong brahmacharis. Sanaka Adaya, headed by Sanaka. Marichi, Atri Angira Sao, Atri and Angira. Pulatya, Pulaha, Krituhu, Kratu, Brigu, Vashishta, Iti, thus, Ete, all of them. Mat Antaha, ending with me. Brahma Vandina, Brahmanas, speakers on Vedic literature. Adya Api, up to the date. Vachapataya, masters of speaking. Tapa, austerities. Vidya, knowledge. Samadhi, and by meditation. Pashyantaha, observing. Api, although. Na pashyanti, do not observe. Pashyantam, the one who sees. Paramishwaram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, Prabhupada's translation. The most powerful Lord Brahma, the father of all progenitors, Lord Shiva, Manu, Daksha, and the other rulers of humankind, the four saintly first-class brahmacharis headed by Shanaka and Sanatana, the great sages Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulatsya, Pulaha, Kratu, Brigu, and Vashishta, and my humble self, Narada, are all stalwart brahmanas who can speak authoritatively on Vedic literature. We are very powerful because austerities, meditation, and education. Nonetheless, even after inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom we always see, we do not know perfectly about him. Purport. According to the foolish Darwinian theory of anthropologists, it is said that 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens had not appeared on this planet because the process of evolution had not reached that point. However, the Vedic histories, the Puranas and Mahabharata, relate human histories that extend millions and millions of years into the past. In the beginning of creation, there was a very intelligent personality, Lord Brahma, and from him emanated all the Manus and the brahmacharis like Sanaka and Sanatana, as well as Lord Shiva, the great sages, and Narada. All these personalities underwent great austerities and penances, and thus became authorities in Vedic knowledge. Perfect knowledge for human beings, as well as all living entities, is contained in the Vedas. All the above-mentioned great personalities are not only powerful, being cognizant of past, present, and future, but are also devotees. Still, in spite of their great education and knowledge, and despite of their meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, they cannot actually understand the perfection of living entities' relationship with Lord Vishnu. This means that these personalities are still limited as far as their knowledge of the unlimited is concerned. The conclusion is that simply by advancing one's knowledge, one cannot be accepted as an expert in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can be understood not by advanced knowledge, but by pure devotional service, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1855. Bhakti-mam abhijananti yavam yash-chasmi tatvataha. Unless one takes to pure devotional service, he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in truth. Everyone has some imperfect idea about the Lord. So-called scientists and philosophers, speculators, are unable to understand the Supreme Lord by virtue of their knowledge. Knowledge is not perfect unless one can come to the platform of devotional service. This is confirmed by the Vedic version. Atapite deva parambuja dvaya prasada leshanugrahita evahi janati tatvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko vicharam vichimbam. The speculators, the Gyanis, go on speculating about the Supreme Personality of Godhead for many, many hundreds of thousands of years. But unless one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot understand his supreme glories. All these great sages mentioned in this verse have their planets near Brahmaloka, the planet where Lord Brahma resides, along with 4 great sages, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumar. These sages reside in different stars, known as the southern stars, which circle the pole star. The pole star, called Dhruvaloka, is the pivot of this universe, and all the planets move around this pole star. All these stars are planets as far as we can see within this one universe. According to Western theory, all the stars are different suns, but according to Vedic information, there is only one sun within this universe. All the so-called stars are but different planets. Besides this universe, there are many millions of other universes, and each of them contain similar innumerable stars and planets. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadade Nirvishesha Shandivadi Pastachadesha Tadade Namaste Jivanandaya Dasaya Vanachayane Prabhupada Balabhaya Sima Suravanani Agyana Dvantakamara Prashtita Petitavana. Big purport. We heard nicely. So far, this chapter we've heard Narada Muni, he's been speaking to Prachini Bari about the futility of, materialistic life. And so now he's kind of, after he's spoken the analogy, he's kind of elaborating. So the first 25 verses of the chapter were Narada elaborating on the allegorical story, because although Prachini Bari heard it, he wasn't so familiar. He wasn't able to understand the import and the purport of the analogy. So Narada Muni began to elaborate what all these things in the analogy meant. So many different things: Chandavega, time, and Jara, old age. So all these various aspects. The snake was the life heirs. The 9 gates were the 9 holes in the body for which we try to enjoy our senses. So this was all elaborated on by Narada Muni. And then Narada gave a direct description of material existence, where he described the modes of material nature and how the living entity is going about enjoying the various modes of material nature, and thus being conditioned and thus suffering in various wombs, right, in various births. And then Narada Muni began to speak these nectarian verses, which we just concluded, about bhakti and about how the real solution to the problem of life is to surrender to Krishna and to chant Hare Krishna and to become his devotee. This is the actual solution to this transmigration and the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease. And so now Narada is going to basically, really the point he's trying to make, he's going to drive home the point. His point's always pure devotional service, but he needs to first off establish that there's a futility in the process of the process of fruitive activities. And so now he's speaking about that. So we should understand that this condemnation of material activities and karma kanda activities and materialistic religious activities is the kind of one of the hearts of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, the very second verse, Dharma projito kaitavota paramo niramatsaranam satam. That this is completely rejecting that which is kaitava, this kaitava dharma, Dharma projito kaitava. Kaitava dharma means cheating religions. And this is establishing the highest truth, which is free from the material miseries and which uproots all these miseries, right? And so Srimad Bhagavatam begins right off by condemning this type of fruitive activity. And Narada Muni is the person Bhagavat. He is the representative, or the Bhagavatam personified. In fact, you can even say that Bhagavatam is a glorification of Narada Muni. If you think about it, that how did the Bhagavatam come about? Because Vyasadeva was speaking on these karmakanda topics. He was engaging in the karmakanda topics. He was giving people prescriptions. He gave them the Mahabharata. Narada Muni appeared and chastised him. He said, "This is tadvayasam tirdam. You've given them literature which is likened to a place of pilgrimage for crows." because it's that literature which one goes to seek some type of material enjoyment. And so, after being chastised by his guru, Vyasadeva began to write this story in which Narada Muni is basically present in every canto of the Bhagavatam and is delivering the message in so many ways through all the various great devotees of the Bhagavatam. So in a way, it's kind of a glorification of his own guru. So this condemnation of material activities is one of the special hearts of the fourth canto. You start off the fourth canto by hearing about Atri Muni, and he had a desire to have children, right, that were like the Supreme Lord. But because he didn't desire the Supreme Lord as his children, and because he had some kind of material aspect, material thought in it, that I want to have children like the Lord, he was not considered a pure devotee by our acharyas. And so then he had three children. And he had Dattatreya, who was a partial incarnation of Vishnu. He had Durvasa Muni, who was a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva. And then he had Soma, the moon, who was a partial incarnation of Lord Brahma. And so then this was condemned. And then we hear about the next section of the fourth canto, you hear about Lord Shiva, right? And Daksha. What was Daksha doing? He was doing a big yajna, right? Materialistic karmakanda yajna. And these types of materialistic, spiritual, and religious activities, they tend to make one puffed up. It's a fact that, when we engage in rituals and unnecessary austerities, we can become puffed up. And so Daksha became puffed up. And he didn't offer the results of his sacrifice to Lord Shiva because Lord Shiva did not stand when Daksha entered the arena. He was offended. His ego was offended. Sometimes we can feel we need respect because once we begin religious activities and we take up these kind of false identifications, I'm a big guru, I'm a big brahmachari preacher, whatever we take up, these false identifications, we tend to become, I deserve some type of respect, which is the opposite of actual spiritual consciousness, which is, of course, Trinata Pisa Nichena, Tareva Sahishnuna. One should be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant, to be amanena, madanena, offering all respect to others, not expecting any respect for oneself, devoid of any sense of false prestige. And then in that stage, one can actually come to the highest spiritual process, which is chanting the holy name constantly. So we can't think that I expect respect, I need, require so much respect. Hare Krishna. And this is not our process. But Daksha was not under that impression. Daksha was very disrespected by Lord Shiva, and so there was a fight that ensued, right? And it got pretty bad. Shiva left, and then after Shiva left, he became, he was pacified because Daksha said some very cruel words to him. But then Sati, she of course wanted to go see Lord Shiva. She wanted to go see her father and her sisters. They were having a party. And she was interested in going to this yajna, dressing nicely, and so she went. And when she got there, her father was very rude to her, didn't embrace her, he didn't speak with her, and so she became angry, and then she self-immolated herself because she was very upset at the disrespect that was shown by Lord Shiva to her father. So then after self-immolating, Lord Shiva was pretty mad. And so Lord Shiva ripped out a piece of his hair, and this demon, Virabhadra, appeared and cut Daksha's head off and offered it into the fire. And all his associates killed everybody. It was a big bad circumstance. This is a demonstration of the kind of futility of these type of karmakanda sacrifices. They don't generate good energy. And then you hear about Dhruva, right? This is a little bit of a higher level. It's karma yoga, but it's still karma. Dhruva wanted a kingdom. He wanted a kingdom like that of his father. So sometimes we also, even though we're practicing devotees, we go to the Lord and we think, my dear Lord, I know I want pure devotional service too, but I'm really having a bad material desire. Please, help me fulfill it. Or, I'm not going to ask you to fulfill it, but deep down in my heart, I'm hoping that you're going to fulfill it. And I'm not going to do anything, but, I know that like you can easily fulfill my material desire. And so sometimes we do that, right? We don't actually ask the Lord because we know, like, consciously we know, like, I'm not going to do that. That's not pure devotional service. But actually, it's kind of like, you can see it in my heart. And, like, if you wanted to, you can easily fulfill that material desire, like you can blow this whole thing up. You can really, you can make it good if you want, but I'm not going to ask you. And so, we play these games sometimes as sadhakas with Krishna, but Krishna is so kind that he many times does not oblige our material desires. So Dhruva, he had this great desire, of course, and because he met a pure devotee, which is the process of coming to that stage of pure devotion. He met a pure devotee, he engaged in the process, and engaging in the process perfectly, he saw Krishna, and he became a pure devotee. So this is actually a very instructive aspect of how we come out of that karma stage into that stage of Shuddha Bhakti. Because Dhruva, he was totally in it for material reasons. But he was going to Krishna, right? That's pious. Akama sarvakamo va moksha kamudari tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purusha param. Whether one is akama, he's free of material desires. He's sarvakama, he has all material desires. Or he's moksha kama, he wants liberation. Those with broad-minded intelligence should worship the supreme whole, the absolute truth, Krishna, with wholeheartedly. So whether you have material desires or you don't have material desires, or you're free of material desires or you want liberation, worship Krishna. This is the instruction of Shukadev Goswami. So following that process, Dhruva approached the Lord by going to the forest. And then in the process of approaching the Lord, what happens to us? Yes, but more importantly than getting purified, the main reason we get purified is we meet a pure devotee. 4 types of pious people approach Krishna, the Jnani, the Artharti, the Artha, the Jigyasu, right? The curious, the one who has knowledge, the absolute truth, one who's in distress, and one who wants wealth. None of them are pure devotees. But in coming to that stage of meeting such a pure devotee, they become purified and become pure devotees. Especially the Jnani, right? Bahunam Janmanam Ante, after many, many births and deaths of cultivating the Jnana, Jnanavam Prapadyate. He becomes a Jnanavan and he surrenders to Krishna. So we have to meet a pure devotee. So if we're fortunate enough to meet Narada Muni's representative, Srila Prabhupada in the form of his books, then in that way we can become purified. So Dhruva met Narada, and then he would prescribe a process. I mean, how many of you wanted pure devotional service when you took initiation? That was like clearly your goal when you took initiation. No, not me. I'm not going to say that because, there were so many things. I want to go back to Godhead, and this is really good for me, and like I like these people. And like if we wanted pure devotional service, would we even really still be in this body? And give me sannyas right now. No. But we had some mixed desires, if we're honest with ourselves. But the Guru gives us a process, right? Chant Hare Krishna. What was Dhruva's mantra? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Do austerity, right? We don't follow Dhruva's program of chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, standing on one leg and eating only air. We don't do that, but we do follow the process of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we have our prescribed austerities. No illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, and no gambling. These are our prescribed austerities. And we take those austerities to our full, ability. And in time, we become purified. When I took initiation, I asked Mother Sundari, I said, what was the which regulative principle should I say first? And she said, you have to say the one that's the hardest for you. The same. I thought, well, I'm never going to eat meat again because I'm more likely to go to a casino and gamble on a fluke than ever eat meat again. So, that was my so meeting was my last one. So, anyhow, so then we follow austerities, and then we become purified by chanting Hare Krishna. And so in that way, we transcend. But Dhruva Maharaj came into it for a material reason. And so this story is also demonstrating the kind of futility of fruitive activities. And then we go on further. We are about King Anga. What did King Anga want? Fourth canto king. Famous fourth canto king. What did he want? He wanted a son. He really wanted a son. And finally, after performing some yagyas and some different activities, he got a son. But his son was King Vena. And so he was not happy. He ended up leaving home, right? He wanted this son, but the son wasn't going to satisfy him, didn't satisfy him at all, because his wife was the daughter of death personified. So he wasn't happy. And then there's King Prithu. King Prithu also performed 99 horse sacrifices, Ashwamedha yagyas. And King Prithu, after his 99 Ashwamedha yagyas, what happened? Indra came and stole the horse in various ways, dressed as a sannyasi, dressed in various sadhu garbs. And it's like a kind of like reminds me of a cartoon, that scene there. It's like, oh, it's Indra. Swiper, stop swiping. And so, that was the demonstration there. There was a futility in that kind of fruitive yagya. And actually, at the end of it, right, the Lord Brahma came down, or was it Lord Brahma, or was it Swayam? I think it was Lord Brahma. Comes down and tells him, stop, you're already a pure devotee, you're already liberated. Just let him have his 100 horse yagyas, okay? You have 99. And then we hear kind of the ultimate, of course, King Prachini, he's a descendant of Prithu, but he loved to just do yagyas. He loved to kill animals and sacrifices, and, he loved to do the whole yagyas. And people are attracted to that, it's kind of something we forget about because most of the Kali Yugans are just attracted to really gross illicit sex and intoxication. So we're not really thinking about, that. But as you get a little more advanced, you want to have your big T-locks, and, you want to look real cool, and you want to do your fire yagya, and, you want to do the kirtan with a big, cool hair piece and, beard, and, you got to look attractive, And so we're attracted to the kind of yagya scene. Of course, kirtan's pure, but if we're doing it with the wrong reason, right? We're doing it to look at me, then we still do it because we'll become purified. I definitely do it for that wrong reason a lot of the time, but I'm getting purified still by chanting. So then, of course, Prachini Bharat was engaged in these activities, and he sent his sons, the Prachetas, to go perform austerity. And in the meantime, Narada Muni came down, and he was so immersed in material life, he had to kind of teach him by analogy. And sometimes you have to do that, you have to try to if people are so arrogant or something, you can't exactly preach to them, And so I've had that once before. There was one particular person who used to come to this temple, and they were being very I know Krishna, and saying really far out stuff. And I was like, I sure wish they were a new person too, and they didn't really chant or very, I was like, well, I sure wish I knew Krishna, I don't feel very advanced myself. And then they were like, that's because you're just a baby in spiritual life. And I was like, really hopeless here, sorry. It was that person. disappeared after making various aparads 2 days, but after that, but they were on the kick. So sometimes you can't tell people directly, like, you're in so much Maya, Prabhu, you're really bad Maya. Because then they'll become offended. You're in Maya. You're fault finding. Sometimes you gotta kind of like, create an analogy or tell a story. And Narada was expert at that. And of course, Jesus was very expert at that. Jesus actually said that. I speak in parables because you people won't understand. So, then now we're hearing the story, right? He told the analogy, and now he's kind of elaborating. Now he's coming to the point that these fruitive activities are useless. And so he's making this point that the demigods don't understand the Supreme Lord. You can't understand the Supreme Lord by jnana or by fruitive activities. So fruitive activities are always in the mode of passion, right? So all of our different fruitive activities we do, which they all come down in all the various Vedic yagyas and different things we do for our sense gratification, then they're not evil in the sense because they're actually purifying. It's better than enjoying in a sinful way. If I have to enjoy intoxication or meat or sex, then let me enjoy it in a religious way versus a sinful way. And this is encouraged by Krishna in the third canto, right? That one should engage in their propensities and their guna and karma in a religious way and become unattached to the fruits. This is the opposite of fruitive activity is when we start getting this karma yoga. So fruitive activity equals passion, passion equals misery. So that if we're thinking that like, they come to the challenge, how do I act then? Because how do I act in a non-fruitive way? I'm not Haridas Thakur. I can't sit down and chant, 128 rounds every day. So what should I do? So this is where you come to this kind of karma yoga. And Krishna makes this point. Our acharyas really drive this home in the Bhagavad Gita. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Krishna says the kind of ultimate bhakti yoga verse, Patram pushpam balam toyam yame bhakti priyachati tadaham bhakta pitam ashnami prayatatmana. Offer me with love and devotion a fruit, flower, leaf, or water, and I will accept it. And then it's described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, knowing Arjuna's mind and thinking that Arjuna felt himself unworthy to just do this pure love for Krishna. He said, that's okay. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, or whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as a sacrifice to me. And this is karma yoga. That whatever you do, whatever your kind of propensity is, right? We all have a propensity to work. We all have a certain propensity. If we can just sit down and do nothing and just think about Krishna, we'll either be pure devotees or pure jnanis. That's what a jnani is. A jnani is a very high level person. They've had to have taken karma sannyas. They're no longer interested in any karmic activities. So unless we're ready for sannyas, and that means sannyas without even the aspect of preaching and all the purifying things, just completely ceasing material activities right here and right now, then we're not really qualified to perform any type of jnana yoga. So that's a very high qualification. Arjuna wasn't qualified to perform it. And so then Krishna is saying, perform this karma yoga, and he makes this point throughout the Bhagavad Gita, that whatever you do, whatever work you're attached to, we're all attached to different types of work. We're attached to different types of activity in this world. I'm forced by my guna and my karma to act a certain way. And therefore, I should do it for Krishna. And there's a really far out point, purport, that is in the 18th chapter. In this verse, Krishna says, if you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be false. Sorry, wrong verse. Going back. Krishna is explaining in the Bhagavad Gita, trying to find the verse. Sorry. He's explaining that when a person engages in activity, we're forced to act according to the modes of nature. He says, if you do not fight, you'll be forced to fight in the end. Krishna is explaining that even though you're not going to fight, you'll be forced to fight by just the sheer nature of your guna and karma. You're going to be forced to fight. So then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that if Krishna is saying that even if Arjuna, he's declining to fight, he's still going to fight, so there's no way he's not going to fight, then why is Krishna telling him to fight? It was like a mind-blowing thing, because Krishna is telling him to fight the whole Bhagavad Gita. And then here Krishna is saying, even if you should decide not to fight, you're going to fight anyways. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that he's actually telling Arjuna to fight so that Arjuna fights in the right consciousness. This is kind of the big understanding. It's a mind-blowing thing that we're going to be forced to act according to our guna and karma. Prakriti kriyamanani guna karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudatma kartahamiti manyate. Krishna explains a living entity bewildered by false ego thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality performed by the modes of material nature. So you have a certain guna, you have a certain mode you've acquired by association with this material world, and you're going to have to act accordingly. So what do? We have to act for Krishna. We have to dovetail it for Krishna. We have to somehow act for Krishna. And that's the idea, that we have to act in the proper consciousness. So therefore, one needs to understand by coming to the mode of goodness what is duty and what is not duty. And that's why, if we're fortunate enough to meet the devotees and become purified by their association, we can begin to understand what is my duty and what is not my duty. And so therefore, Karma Yoga means I'm attached to the work. I'm not attached to the fruit of the work, but I'm attached to the work itself. I'm giving up all the fruits. Fruits are Krishna's, but I'm attached to the work. I can't stop working. I have to do things. And so you're going to do them anyways. So you might as well do them in the right consciousness by coming in contact with the pure devotee, giving the fruits up to Krishna. But especially if you can come in contact with the devotee, or Krishna himself in Arjuna's case, and use that propensity in Krishna's service. This is the real, genuine thing that makes us, bhakti yogis. And so, we're going to be forced to act according to our guna and karma. There's no kind of way around it. And so, really, if you kind of understand this, you have to let go of this kind of conception that, this devotee or this person is higher than this person, or this person is lower than this person. We have kind of a social order, but it's material. Because we see that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is a sannyasi, and Lord Chaitanya is God, so he kind of imbibes all perfect qualities. But for the sake of teaching us, who is the most renounced and detached person in the CC in terms of attraction to the opposite sex? Ramananda Roy, right? Ramananda Roy, he's a Sudra and he's a Grihasta. Lord Chaitanya said, he's more no one can even compare to Ramananda Roy. Because Lord Chaitanya says, even if I see a wooden form of a woman, I become disturbed. Ramananda Roy, he's personally bathing the bodies of the Dasi dancing girls. And, he thinks of their bodies like stone. It's like he's touching stone. Because he's always thinking about himself as, Vishaka Saki and meditating on serving Radha and Krishna. So, we're going to act according to our guna and karma, but internally, we're not these bodies. That means we're not a sannyasi, we're not a sudra, we're not a brahmana, we're not a brahmachari, we're not none of these things. We're part and parcel of Krishna. So therefore, we can attain perfection by performing our own duty. That's the point that's made. We attain perfection by performing our own duty. And the duty that is given to us, especially if we're lucky enough to become devotees, in the karma world or in the Kali Yuga world out there, it's very difficult to understand what is my duty, because everybody's just sinful. And no one's thinking of God. But if we can have some purification and come in contact with a spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, it becomes clear what is my service. And then I feel I need to execute that service without giving it up, out of bodily discomfort or so many different things. So we become attached to the work. And in becoming attached to the work, we become attached to Krishna, because that work is for Krishna if it's devotional work. And then that way we become purified, and those propensities to enjoy the work, they go away. And so then coming to the stage of pure devotional service, which is the essence of the Bhagavatam, Anyabhilashita Shunyam Gyanam Karmani Navritam Anukulyena Krishna Shilanam Bhakti Uttama, as defined by Rupa Goswami. Pure devotional service is free of sinful propensities. What are the sinful propensities? Meat eating, intoxication, gambling, illicit sex life. And it's free of fruitive activities, karmanyanavritam. There's no karmic activities. It means we're not into this fruitive activity, not going to God for some reason. We're not going to God to become attached to this or that, or beyond this kind of stage of, I'm going to do this for the Lord, I'm going to do this for the Lord. We're doing what the Lord wants us to do. And it's done in a way that's pleasing to Krishna and with a favorable mood to Krishna. And in that way, one makes genuine spiritual advancement. So if one finds themselves in a position where I don't know my duty, this is the key point to take away from the class here, because we're all in this position essentially in Kali Yuga, that I don't know my duty. I don't really know my propensities. And, I was born, eating meat, having illicit sex, taking intoxication. And, I was drinking coffee from a sippy cup at 2 years old. That was that's Mexican. I was Hispanic family. They do that. They give their children coffee. I loved it too. So we have it's a thing in Hispanic families. Children always drink coffee. Yeah. And so, I was just born my mom used to drink coffee with wine, and as like a little girl, that was her grandparents are from Italy. So that's like a thing they do in Italy. So, we're all born in these kind of really deep Malecha families, if we're Western, not Jamuna excluded. But, so we all have so many different things. So what do we do? You can't perform karma yoga unless you have karma, right? We hear this all the time. There's karma, there's vikarma, and there's akarma. Right? Karma means prescribed devotional activities. That means if you're a Kshatriya, you do Kshatriya activities. If you're a Brahmana, you do Brahmana activities. If you're a Vaishya, you do Vaishya activities. Sudra does Sudra activities. Brahmacharis do Brahmachari activities. Grihastas do proper Grihasta activities. And in that way, we can offer that to Krishna. But if I'm, a so-called Grihasta working at that just, found out about the Hare Krishna movement and quit my job at the butcher shop, everything we're doing is so contaminated in Kali Yuga. So what do? So you can't even perform karma yoga because there's no system to perform really pious activities. So therefore, the process that can take one from the lowest to the highest is chanting, hearing, remembering Krishna, the 9 processes of bhakti. And that's why it's the really only prescribed method in this age, is this chanting of Hare Krishna, is this performing bhakti yoga. It's the only prescribed method because we're not even qualified to perform karma yoga most of the time. Once we become purified and we have an association, we can perform some karma yoga. If we can't just fully give up everything and engage in hearing and chanting exclusively, I have to do a little of this, a little of that, I got to engage my senses, so forth. Okay, do it for Krishna. That's still bhakti. It's not Shuddha bhakti, but it's still bhakti. It's Mishra, Karma Mishra bhakti at best. Mishra Karma bhakti. At worst, it's just karma kanda, karma yoga, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to do pure bhakti. And so therefore, we become very attached to hearing. We become very attached to chanting. And those are our main activities. And this, we're hearing about how none of these sages can know Krishna. Lord Shiva, they don't know Krishna in full. Because no one can have knowledge about Krishna. You have the who, the what, the when, the where, the how, the why. There's no way we can understand the how. How does Krishna do things? That's beyond us. What is God? We can understand a little bit of what is God. When is God? Where is God? We know He's everywhere, but we can't really conceive as to where the personality of Godhead is. He's in Goloka Vrindavan, but what does that mean? But we can really understand the who by Krishna's grace. And therefore Krishna says, that one who practices yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me. Manashakta, with mind attached to me. Yoga Myunjan Madashraya, in this full consciousness of me. Ashamshayam Samagramam, Yata Gyasyati touched to me. Just here. We can just by hearing about the process of Krishna consciousness and practicing it, we can come to this kind of full knowledge. So yeah, give up fruitive activities and just act for Krishna. And if we can't just fully engage in the activities of bhakti yoga, then do whatever we do, offer it to Krishna, because we're going to be forced to act. So might as well act in the right consciousness, right? Any questions or comments? Chandrika.
So when we engage in bhakti yoga and we do our japa and we follow like that, but we also have to work to earn a living to sustain family life if you're grahasta. So of course, you can work, like get a job and then give a certain amount of Lakshmi to the temple. That's one way. But if you want to be engaged in 24 hours in that service, but at the same time you have to earn. So is it that we, by doing our practices every day, that Krishna reveals to us, maybe certain creativity that we can do to enhance ourselves and the movement of Krishna consciousness? Of course, by being conforming as well, but just creatively.
We should understand that there's a difference between, like, if we're doing it properly, if we're doing bhakti yoga properly, whether we're grihasta, sannyasi, brahmachari, whatever it is, we are completely transcendental to the material world, and we are making a contribution. Thing is that, like, a genuine, like, of course we heard about Ramananda Roy, and there's so many grihasta, great grihasta devotees. But the point is that their main attachment, and of course the best example is Srivas Thakur, their main attachment is to Krishna. It's always a matter of attachment. If someone's becoming a grihasta, in the beginning it may be so, and that's why these ashrams exist. In the beginning it may be so, someone's becoming a grihasta because they're attached to associating with the opposite sex, they're attached to the idea of a family life, and they need to act in such a way. Okay, so let me dovetail that for Krishna. But in the process of that, if we find ourselves in whatever situation we find ourselves, like Arjuna found himself a grihasta and a kshatriya, whatever position we find ourselves in, surrender to Krishna. Meaning now I'm no longer, I was given this duty by Krishna. Every grihasta should think that I was given this family by Krishna, I was given these activities by Krishna, and because I have a guru, I have devotees, I have Vaishnavas around, now I'm directed to do this ashram. And so let me do it for Krishna. That becomes pure bhakti. Let me follow the regulative principles perfectly. That becomes pure bhakti. As a grihasta, we follow the regulative principles perfectly. And as a sannyasi also. So let me engage in those things perfectly. And let me chant Harika. Let me become attached to hearing and chanting. And in that way, I can do amazing things like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Although he was a grihasta and he was fully engaged in all grihasta duties, his main attachment was to Krishna. In fact, he understood, he wrote in his bhajan, like, my children, my house, my home, they're all yours. So he had become thoroughly purified. That's the real genuine grihasta. But if we're, in the beginning stages and we're not Bhaktivinoda Thakur, so we have some material desire. And therefore, let me go through this, but at the same time contemplate the hearing and the chanting. So once we're at that stage of I'm chanting my rounds and I'm doing service and I gotta work, even if we have to work, that's still service for a grihasta, for a genuine grihasta. That's why Krishna says to Arjuna, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mam Anusmaram Yugacha Mayapritamano Buddhir Mam Eva Shashi Shamshaya. Just perform your prescribed duty, whatever that may be, in this case of fighting, while at the same time remembering me in the form of Krishna with your mind and intelligence fixed upon me, surely you will come to me. So, therefore, whatever contribution we make is simply extra. And Krishna will give us intelligence to do that. That's why, grihasta devotees, they've done amazing things for this movement, in a sense sometimes more than renounced devotees. So, in any case, we're a pure devotee. That's the main thing. And then, Vishwanath, Lord Chaitanya, when he came back, after taking sannyas, he came back to Navadvip and he saw Srivas Thakur and he said, all you do is chant Hare Krishna. You're asked, how do you even maintain your family? And Srivas Thakur said, if I ask Krishna for something 3 times it doesn't come, I'll drown myself in the Ganges. And then Lord Chaitanya saw his faith and that Krishna is going to take care of him because he's engaged in his hearing and chanting so nicely. Lord Chaitanya said, Lakshmi Devi will starve before there's no food in Srivas Thakur's house. So that's the main thing for a devotee. And that's our main process is this, let me become absorbed in hearing and chanting wherever I'm at, whatever ashram I'm in. And if I can, let me use that ashram duty or that varna in Krishna's service. And in that way, the hearing and chanting purifies us to where we have no propensity for acting in kind of karmic ways. Either we're just acting as an example, or we just, become a Paramahamsa. Nice.
Jai.
Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
All right.
Welcome. Where are you guys coming from?
Well, I'm traveling with the Festival of India.
Yeah.
We came from Austin.
Okay.